coverage. Well, we're joined now in studio by Ken Reynolds. He's the Regional Manager for Gauteng at Nedbank Corporate Property Finance. Now, to argue the business case for green buildings, I guess you should have met David Shapiro slightly earlier on when he was complaining about the poor lighting in the basements of green buildings because he can never find his car. I take it that's not a case that you would agree with, or maybe you would?
Well, if you look at an average building, if you leave the lights on in the basement for the whole day to make sure the cars can see where they're going, it doesn't make too much sense. So, what we've got in our building is we've got movement sensors in the basement. And yes, you do get dark corners, but when people are moving and the system's working properly, he should be able to find his car.
Sounds familiar, like one of our basements, the parking that we have there. But maybe let's touch on the investment case for green buildings. Anyone who works in and around the Sandton vicinity would have spotted the likes of the Ernst & Young as well as Alexander Forbes buildings, which look stunning and are green. Is there an increased demand for green buildings in South Africa?
Probably the biggest investment case, apart from the financial side, which I'll get to, is that a lot of multinationals are insisting that they have green buildings. Simply because, for moral reasons, they keep their own scorecard, the same as they have a BE scorecard. They have their environmental scorecard. And as soon as you're in a green building, you're using a lot less energy and there are a lot less emissions coming out of that property. And also, the indoor environmental quality is much better. So it's good for the employees. But on the financial side, maybe just to give a little bit of advice of what people should look at when they're thinking about putting up a green building. A huge amount can be done just in the planning. So the first green buildings that were built, they were groundbreaking developments, and the guys were paying the school fees. And it was very difficult to get green materials and even get green professionals to help you. But now there are a lot more of them in the country. So if you plan correctly and you just want to go for a baseline green building, which is a 4-star building, it doesn't cost you very much more than a conventional building. Some people will say you can do it for a very similar cost.
Similar cost, but long-term savings would obviously be the benefit with the green building.
There's a huge long-term saving. In order to get a 4-star rating, which is the baseline rating on a new build, you have to have a 30% energy saving. So just some financial numbers just for fun. If you take into account that the built environment uses 30% of the power in the country, and you can save 30% in all that 30%, that gets back to 10%. Now, there are not that many new builds that have got green ratings, but a lot of existing buildings are now being upgraded and a lot of the green technology is being put into them. So there's still a substantial power saving that comes from that.
What about the funding? If I'm a property developer and I want to go green, is there enough money behind it?
Let's look at it from a cost of occupancy angle. So whether you be an owner or a tenant, you've got a certain amount of money that you can pay to occupy the building. So if you're paying less on the operating expenses and the outgoing, it means that there's more available to service whatever debt or show a return on the capital invested. So it makes, it just makes sense that you're paying less out to other people and you're keeping more in-house. So it enables you to then spend more money on your building.
So something else that they refer to in property is location, location, location. Sandton is known as being the richest square mile on the continent. Are we seeing a lot more development here? And what about the vacancy rates?
The vacancy rates, especially in the offices in Sandton, are getting worse. And I think, throughout the country, it's not, especially offices are not a good place to be. So, all the developers are treading in that area with caution. Other sectors of the market are not quite as bad. The good, clean industrial properties that are got to do with logistics, warehousing and distribution, there is a demand for them and they're doing pretty well. And some of the developers are building those on spec and that they haven't got tenants. On the retail front, there's also, some shopping centres are not just doing as well as they could, but new shopping centres are coming up and they're managing to get tenants and operate.
Tough times ahead, no doubt, but hopefully there will be a turn in the cycle. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ken. That was Ken Reynolds. He's the Managing Executive at Nedbank Corporate Property Finance.